How does stress physiology affect weight loss?
We have to use our main means of survival, which is our ability to think. So you have to have your prefrontal cortex turned on. And you have to look at our initial conditions and the way the physiology actually works in your body. And how hormonally, how you are geared to lay down body fat. Okay, and that has to do with your hormones. And your hormones are controlled by your nerve system. And your nerve system will be able to function at its best if it doesn't have these chemical, physical, or mental stresses to deal with.
Chemical, physical, and mental stress affect hormones.
Any of those will put you in a stress physiology, and just like running, for instance, the fuel that you use is fat. So in between the bouts of running, your body's trying to put in fat. It's trying to store fat. But with the high intensity exercise, it's just trying to store sugar, and excess fat deposition will become a hindrance to your survival needs. And so you have to look at what's changed since the Industrial Revolution. Well, repetitive motion, for one, physically, and sitting on our butts. We're not physically active.
Repetitive motion and sitting for long periods cause stress physiology. How does the body adapt?
Being in a stress physiology, and our body's very adaptive, the one way that it adapts to being or counteracting the acid load that is placed on the bloodstream is to hold on to water and to store fat, because that buffers the acid load on our body. And we're to keep the nervous system's ability to keep the blood pH at a very specific and narrow range. Otherwise you die. Okay. Also, when you're in a time of stress, the preferred fuel for high intensity or very stressful situations, like when you're running from, or you're jumping back from a crocodile when you're trying to get water, is sugar. So what happens in your body, your physiology, your body downregulates your insulin receptors because it wants to keep the sugar in the blood and available without, it wants to have all that sugar available. And if it's chronically elevated, the stress levels, because you have a mental, physical, and chemical stress constant, is that your body's running in a stress physiology, and it will start breaking down your muscle tissues and converting them into sugar, and it blocks the storing of sugar, and it blocks the use of fat for energy.
Stress physiology prevents the body from using its own fat for fuel.
It's impossible to access those fat reserves and to deplete them and to become lean unless you take yourself out of a stress physiology and you put yourself more in, you balance it out with rest and digest physiology. There's two parts of our nerve system, and one part does fight or flight, and other part does rest and digest. And obviously you need both. One that stimulates functions and one that shuts them down. You need a balance there, depending on whatever your needs are at the current time. And if your needs are constantly stress physiology, you're going to sacrifice your long-term health for short-term survival. And the way the body does that is like keeps the blood sugar high. Sugar being high, what it does is very damaging to your nerve system, very toxic to your nerve endings. That's why diabetics they lose sensation in their fingertips and their feet, the most distal parts where the blood system would be affected or the nerve system be affected, the sensation. If you're constantly running from the bear, constantly have all these stresses, then you're constantly being stress physiology, and you're constantly going to block the use of fat for energy. You're going to break down the system that burns the most energy, which is your muscular system. You're going to break down your muscles. And you're going to shut down your prefrontal cortex. You're going to shut down your digestion. Your heart is going to be under a lot of stress. Your immune system is going to be suppressed. So it opens you up to all these chronic diseases, being in this stress physiology.
For more information, please visit universallyaligned.net.